Hello class, and welcome to the first video. In this video we're going to begin by talking about the scope of economics, basically the foundation of economics. And we're going to talk about how the foundation of economics can be basically summarized in three quick words, and that is scarcity, choices, and then self-interest. So let's begin by talking about the economic problem. The economic problem can basically be summarized in two different quotes. And the first one is, you can't have your cake and eat it too. We've all heard that comment, that phrase. And then there's also, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Well, what do these two quotes mean? It means you can't have everything you want. You're limited on what you can actually have. So think about that in the real world. Can you get everything that you want at every single point in time? No. You're limited on what you can actually get. And you're also limited on what's available out there. Well, that limited amount of goods and resources, that's known as scarcity. Scarcity means that there's only a limited amount of goods, there's only a finite amount of goods and resources out there. So because there's only a limited amount of goods and resources, what do you have to do? You have to make choices. Scarcity, because of this concept of scarcity, because there are only a limited amount of goods and services out there in the world, you must make choices on which of these goods and resources you actually want to buy or use or deal with. Because we cannot have everything we desire, we must choose what we really want. Just like where it says up here, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You must choose either the cake or eating it. And then that there's no such thing as a free lunch, meaning there's not enough to go around. So, because of scarcity, we must make choices. But how do we make these choices? How do individuals actually make these choices? These choices are based off of self-interest. We must make our choices off of self-interest. So, consumers, how do they make choices? How do you as a consumer make your choice? Well, you attempt in the everyday life to maximize your satisfaction given a budget. Think about this. Don't we all have a finite amount of money that we can spend? Don't we all have a limited budget? Open up your wallet or look at your bank account. There's only so much money that you can actually spend. So what are you going to spend that money on? How are you going to utilize that budget? How are you going to utilize that money? Well, you're going to do what you can to maximize your satisfaction. That might mean that, well, you'd rather go out and buy with the last $20 you have, you might rather go out and buy a steak and cook it yourself. Maybe that maximizes your satisfaction, or maybe you would rather go out to eat somewhere. So you maximize your satisfaction given that budget, which means that as a consumer, you must often make choices between stuff like work and leisure. You have a limited amount of time. That time has a budgeted constraint to it. So you must make the decision on which would which would maximize your satisfaction, working and earning money, or just laying around maybe on a beach down in Mexico. What are you going to do to maximize that satisfaction given that limited amount of time? Now, I'm sure we all would rather be laying on a beach in Mexico rather than working, but yet you also got to consider the aspect that you have to work in order to make money to afford the vacation to go for this leisure time. So it's a trade-off. Are you going to always work, or are you going to try to play and have no money? And you've got to try and maximize your satisfaction. Or would you rather spend money now or save it for later? Would you rather have money in the bank to save up to be able to buy what you want at a later time, or would you rather use that money right now to buy something right here and now? Long story short is, you maximize your satisfaction. You try to make you as happy as possible given your budget, which it might be a monetary budget, meaning money, or it might be a time constraint. But that all leads to that self-interest. And that deals with consumers. How do producers choose? Producers, what they are trying to do is they're trying to maximize their profit given a budget. So the consumers are the individuals that are buying goods and services. But these producers, these are the ones that are making those goods and services. So they're trying to maximize their profit, maximize the amount of money that they are making given a budget, given the amount of money that they have to spend. They're going to be looking at their current resources and the current relative prices, and they're going to try to attempt to figure out how to properly utilize their resources in order to maximize their profits. What about societies? Societies as a whole, how do they allocate their resources? Well, they often have to do it among governmental programs. And ideally, what a society would try to do is they're trying to maximize the overall satisfaction for the government or for the society, maximize the overall satisfaction for the nation through these governmental programs. Now, one thing that we must note is that all choices have consequences. Every choice that you have has a consequence. But in economics, what we call these consequences is a term called opportunity cost. So know that every choice that you make, whether for yourself, based off your self-interest, has an opportunity cost. And we're going to cover opportunity cost in a later video a little bit further in depth.